Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Andy White, and I will be your host this morning. We'll have everybody muted for the duration of the call, and there will be a time at the end where we'll open up the microphone so that everybody can have a chance to ask some questions. This morning, we're going to be talking about the Epygi's call center solution, and more specifically, how to configure it on the Epygi PBX. All right, as far as the agenda, I have allowed about an hour and a half. I don't think we're going to need quite that long, but I've allowed some extra time at the end for questions. As far as the agenda, we'll look at some slides. Start off with for automatic call distribution and Epygi ACD Console, also known as EAC. We'll look at the QX and the licensing. How to configure the ACD queues and agents. We're going to do that right within the product. We'll look at the EAC options and the reports, and at the end we'll have some time for some questions. All right, what is Epygi's solution for call centers? It consists of two licensable features, that being the ACD, or automatic call distribution, and Epygi ACD Console, or EAC. Okay, ACD itself allows you to configure basic queues and agents, supervisors directly on the PBX for inbound calling, and to manage the distribution of those inbound calls to the queues. All right, and then EAC enhances the basic ACD offering with a web-based tool for agents and supervisors so that they can manage and monitor the call center activities. All right, some of the basic building blocks that make up the ACD solution. First, we have the admin who manages the entire software. And then you've got the ACD queues. They're used to receive the incoming calls, and they distribute the calls to all the agents that are idle. Then you've got the agents. They're basically extensions on the PBX, and they can be assigned to one or more queues. And then you've got the supervisor that manages and controls a queue or queues. And then the incoming calls, they can go to an auto tenant or with an IVR, which is interactive voice response. And so it prompts the callers to enter, like 1 for sales, 2 for support, etc. And that way they can be routed to the correct queue. And then we have reports, which have we have extensive CSV, which is comma separated values. Those reports are readily open in like a Microsoft Excel format. So how do we receive calls to our queues to ACD? You can use an auto tenant. Okay, that's quite common. So it receives the calls and prompts the caller so that they can be connected to the proper queue. You also have the DID can be configured so that it calls directly to the queue. So the callers, they can dial a specific number and get connected directly to the queue without having to go through an auto tenant. And then also receptionists could transfer calls into a queue. After speaking with a customer, maybe they decide which queue it's going to go to, which department needs to assist the customer. All right, as far as the agents goes, there's each agent can receive calls from a queue or queues. They can make and receive direct calls to their extension. And agents, they can be local in the office, or they can work remotely at home using a remote extension. They can also be configured to use their cell phone and receive calls that way. And then an agent can be a member. They can receive calls from 1 or more ACD queues. So here might be maybe a call scenario where a customer calls in. On the right side, they can come through the PSTN network. maybe directly from the central office on POTS lines, or they could be using SIP trunks, and either way they reach the QX, and then from there they get connected to maybe an auto tenant where they might press 1 for sales, 2 for marketing, 3 for support, and then they get connected to the proper queue where they're going to be waiting to get answered. Once the call comes into the system here on the left, the call reaches an auto tenant, and they just decide which queue that they're going to be connected to. A few things will happen to that call. The call actually might get rejected immediately if the queue has reached its capacity as far as the number of callers that it allows in the queue. At that point, it might overflow to some other destination. Once they get connected to the queue, one of 3 things will happen. Either the agent's going to answer the call, okay, that would be the best case scenario, or the caller gets tired of waiting and they hang up. So that would be considered an abandoned call by the customer. And lastly, maybe the call gets rejected. Maybe the caller, they've been sitting in the queue for too long, and there's a queue timer as far as how long you're going to allow that caller to sit in the queue before you redirect them elsewhere. Okay, so that could be another option there. But either way, they would be removed from the queue and redirected elsewhere. Epygi ACD Console, or EAC, it's a web-based application, and it enhances the basic ACD. It relies on the basic ACD itself to work. Okay, so the basic ACD offering has to be installed and active. EAC allows agents, supervisors, administrators, they can monitor queues and agents, and they can see statistics and real-time statistics or even historical information. They'll display and manage the agent's statuses. The agents can change their status. The supervisors can also change the agent status, as we will see. You can view the queues and agent details. You can get real-time and historical reports. You can chat with other agents and supervisors. You can track calls using wrap-up codes and add comments to those calls. It's web-based. Okay, so need to emphasize that. So no need to install any app or other servers. It's similar to logging into the QX. All right, supervisor message can be displayed like a banner going across the screen so the agents can see some maybe important information. All right, let's talk about licensing. Okay, so the ACD is composed of 2 licensable features. They're available on all of our PBXs except for the QX20. Okay, first we want to start with the basic ACD license. Enables basic ACD for call handling, allows you to have inbound calls, queuing, distributes the calls to the agents. It's just a one-time purchase. Okay, a lot of times that's all people need is just the basic ACD, just a means of being able to receive calls to queues. The agents will either be logged in or logged out. They're not going to have all the different statuses and things like that. They're either going to be logged into the queue or they're going to log out of the queue, and they're going to have a button on their phone that can log them in, log them out. So it's very simplistic, very easy, but that's actually fits the bill for a lot of customers, especially small call centers. They just need a means of being able to receive calls from their customers and get those distributed to the agents. All right, so it's a basic ACD one-time purchase, enables it, and you're done, and you get it for forever. Okay. The next part is the EAC licensing, and this is an annually renewable license. Okay, and so let's talk about that. So we got it's a per seat license, and it's based on the number of concurrent logins to EAC. All right, so the first point there reemphasizes that. So the number of EAC licenses required is determined by the number of agents and supervisors that will all be logged in simultaneously to the EAC. So you might have 20 agents configured in the system, but at any given point in time, only 10 of those would be the maximum that would ever be logged in simultaneously. So therefore you need a license for 10 EAC users. All right. Even though you're using EAC, you can also have some other users that are just basically logged into the queue, agents that are logged in just using the ACD, and those don't affect the number of EAC licenses or logins. All right. You have one admin. All the others can be agents or supervisors. As far as the licenses, they'll be sold in quantities of 5, 10, or 20, okay, for the number of simultaneous logins. It includes the ACD licenses, the basic ACD license for call queuing on an annual basis also. So if you purchase the EAC, you don't have to go and purchase ACD as well, okay? So as I mentioned, the ACD is required, the basic ACD license is required when you have EAC. When you purchase the EAC license, it will come with the ACD license as well. All right, and I mentioned it is annually renewable at a reduced, significantly reduced cost. All right. Now, let's say you've got a customer that they've purchased just the basic ACD. That's all they need. Just they're just receiving calls to the queues, and they're just they've got the basic ACD going on. Okay, but they also have a requirement for reporting, and they want to see some of the statistics and the agents and how many calls they received, and so that's pretty common. So the only reporting that we have is within the EAC. You have to have an EAC license to go in and look at the reports. Okay, so therefore we do sell a single user EAC license, so it can be used with the basic ACD, and it's a one-time purchase. It's not the annual renewal on that is not required. All right, hopefully I've cleared up some of the licensing questions on that I've heard on that. So let's what we want to do now is we want to jump in, and we're going to log into the QX and actually begin looking at the configuration. Okay, didn't want to spend a lot of time on slides because I know you've seen some of these before. All right, I'm logging into a local QX200 that I have. All right, and it is running. Actually, we've just recently announced, if you haven't seen it already, we've had the recent software posted, an update here just this week. All right, 6.2.11. I'm actually on a newer version with some enhancements that we've been testing, specific mainly for ACD and the EAC, and I'll point those out. So, all right, let's first we'll go to the extensions tab on the left-hand side, and at the top we'll click on ACD. And the first thing we want to do is we're going to create a couple of queues. So I'll click Add, and we'll configure the sales queue, and I'm going to make it extension 600. All right, and then let's go over some of the options within the queue. We'll jump right into it. So for the ACD queue settings, so I gave it an extension 600. So basically, so the one thing I need to point out and highlight is 600 is basically treated like an extension. It is an extension basically within the system. So from your phone, you can dial 600 and you can reach the queue directly. From the auto tenant, you can route calls directly to that extension 600. All right, so it's treated just like any other extension in the system. All right, as far as the queue settings, we want to go through these. There's several ways of distributing